We're back and ready to kick off match number 1 of the day here, and as we did mention just before the break, we do have blitzchung versus BloodTrail. And you know, for me, this is just the big point. This could be a huge turning point for just blitzchung in general in this Grandmasters. We talked a lot about him just before the break, but we can go over it just a little bit. But he 2-0'd Patre's mage opponent yesterday, and in a very convincing fashion, because I think that is just the strength of this Hunter deck in that matchup. Let's take a look at it one more time just to refresh you into what it is. It's mainly just the consistent pressure that continues throughout the whole game, especially with cards like Dire Frenzy, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of stuff you can just play out, even on one, if it's just a one-mana 1/1. Having something on the board, do a little bit of chip damage. Even the threat of just playing out a Hyena on turn 2, for example, if you have that 1-drop. Mages, we've talked about, doesn't have that sort of single-target removal, unless some people have been teching like Snap Freeze, but that's not quite common yet. Right. So you need like 2 hits of a Ray of Frost at that point. If you're using your turn 2 to do that, you're using resources. There's a lot of early game stuff the Hunter can just throw out, and even if he doesn't have like an explosive 1-drop to 2-drop to like Animal Companion, you still have Tracking Master's Call to try and find some more powerful turns.
Yeah, I think as well what's really good about this deck is, or as Hunter at least right now, is it has good ways to deal with the stuff that isn't just mounting Giant into Conjurer's Call, right? So if Sorcerer's Apprentice comes down onto, even with a Mirror Images, well, you've got Spring Paws, Timberwolves, Unleash the Hounds, Vicious Scalehides, even the Marked Shot as well, which is great at just direct removal of just removing those big threats, because Mana Cyclone is a big threat, but when it's in hand and then gets played, afterwards it's a 2-2. You know, you don't care.
Still something.
But Sorcerer's Apprentice is a huge threat that you want to remove. Same with Luna, for example. Being able to get to all these key minions that really help Cyclone Mage sort of tick forward, it is super important. And we can check out BloodTrail's Mage now and see what blitzchung's going to go up against, because let's not, you know, we've talked a lot about how much this Hunter does well versus Mage. Mage isn't #1 for nothing right now in terms of how powerful this deck and this archetype is. We'll just break down this and how well it's going to do versus blitzchung.
Sure, we see a lot of the staples here. Mountain Giants, obviously, Conjurer's Calling, Mana Cyclone, which is why I've been calling it Cyclone Mage. But BloodTrail has opted to include a lot of one-of-tech cards and in his primary deck. We see an Ooze as weapon removal, we see a Banana Buffoon to help with hand size, 1 Nova to help stall out the game, Sandbinder, which we've seen a lot of lists, but most people have been running just one, so I like that as well. But he's got 1 Vexcrow, 1 Astromancer, 1 Rabble Bouncer. Cards that kind of work in different matchups. The Rebel Bouncer and Vexcrow can help against more aggressive decks, and the Astromancer's kind of in there for more gas, either in the mirror if you need something else by turn 7, or even against Warrior. So I'm curious to see how he's spread out to cover a few different bases to kind of hedge, but that also means that his primary list will be a little bit less consistent against his opponents.
Yeah, we've seen some other players submit Mage. A lot of other players submit Mage, but we'll get that. In the, for example, their primary list is double Vexcrow, you know, double Frost Nova, just all of these. If I run into aggro, I do not want to just get stomped, you know, quickly. So these are more defensive tools in the primary deck. But then, for example, if you hit Warrior, then yes, some of those tools are good anyway because Warrior tries to play on curve, but they're nowhere near as powerful as having just continued big threats to try and make up the damage difference that happens a lot in the Warrior matchup. So I feel that as time goes on, and I feel it's going to continue as we move forward throughout Grandmasters, that getting the correct read on your opponent is so important, especially for the primary deck build. But you know, we're talking a lot about how favored this Hunter is, and I do believe it is, but Mage can do silly things. When I've been playing this matchup from both sides, you know, Mage can still make some massive dudes that Hunter doesn't really have great answers to. There's 1 Deadly Shot in the deck, and we did see yesterday, you know, the Hunter's Mark, along with just a kill command to kill a Giant, but that was a single Giant. I think if the Mage can go wide, and if BloodTrail can go wide with the big guys, and he doesn't just die the turn after, well, the game gets very difficult, as it does versus most classes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we'll see what these players open up with in their opening hands. I feel like a lot of what the game looks like depends on what the Mage has in their opening hand. Obviously, you can always have Giant Conjurer's Calling, but it's been very interesting to see how these Mage players are kind of choosing what to keep in their mulligans. A lot of these cards aren't standalone threats or stuff you just want to throw out there. For example, Vex was a 4-mana 3/3. You're not going to slam that down on turn 4, but it's interesting to see how players choose which cards to keep in combination with other cards and which cards they want to keep to try and find other cards.
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because, okay, so let's just, we can ignore blitzchung's mulligan for a minute, just because Hunter mulligan's a little bit more straightforward, and then the Mage's right now, because I feel like this is so hard for the Mage. But what do you make of this? Because there are options where, as I said, if you go wide with the little dudes, say the Mana Cyclone Apprentice turns, Hunter can punish that, and your spells might not be that good anyway that you get, even if you can get the Cyclone off. But BloodTrail did keep a Giant, so is he expecting to keep this Giant down?
So on coin, having the Giant isn't terrible. You don't necessarily even have to hold it for the coin Conjurer's Calling if it gets to that point. BloodTrail might just, you know, hold on for a few turns, play out the Giant as is. Blitzchung isn't running only one deadly shot. And then keeping the Apprentice and Cyclone is just flexible because there's enough cheap spells that hopefully by the turn you either play the Giant or draw a couple other things, maybe a Magic Trick, an Arcane Intellect. You have more stuff to go for with a huge Mana Cyclone turn. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff Hunter can do to get past that. And then we see Blitzchung doing a great job of this, just playing out the Spring Pop, playing out the Hyena. No reason to hold these things, just play them out so they're in play and then start hitting your opponent in the face. Don't give them time.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I'm not sure if Blitzchung has done this, like, I'll say on purpose, but the ping onto the Hyena makes sense, right? You don't give anything that Blitzchung can trade into to buff the Hyena.
Yep.
Kill it over 2 turns, what, 99% of the time? But by going wide, it means Blitzchung now has his choice of what he wants to Dire Frenzy.
Yep.
Because if the ping comes out, he can get Dire Frenzy off every time. If it doesn't come out, great, the Hyena lives. So it's a win-win situation already. And just right now, you already see. We barely talked about mulligans. BloodTrail's on 20 health. He does have a decent hand, but Blitzchung's already so far ahead. He has Stranglethorn Tiger to follow up with, or a Dire Frenzy, and starts tracking to gain some value to continue pressuring.
BloodTrail can't. It looks like he's thinking of just playing with the Giant. He has the potential turn 5 3-mana Giant coin Conjurer's Calling, but it's too slow. That's crazy, right? Like.
And that was going to be my follow-up question about the mulligans before we just got into how close to dying BloodTrail is, basically, is that if you keep Giant, Cyclone, and Apprentice, I feel like you need the Evocation to do anything. Because if you plan on playing the Giant on curve or quickly, like you said, then you can't really play the Apprentice and Cyclone, right? Because your hand's going to go smaller, so the Giant gets further and further away.
I think that's why you get the Giant specifically because he's on coin and he's just going to throw it out and then go for a big Apprentice turn.
Right. And that's the point. It lessens the reactionary plays you can make without the evocation.
That's true. It makes it less likely you have more of those cheap cards you want. But I do like that he's keeping it because it's not always the case that, all right, I have Apprentice Cyclone, let me toss everything and get exactly Ray of Frost, because that doesn't always happen. This way with the Giant, he has a few options. If he picks up Arcane Intellect, suddenly the Giant looks a lot better and a Conjurer's Calling. And if he doesn't and finds some cheap spells, then he can go for the Apprentice Cyclone route if he's really in a dire situation.
And now again, you know, the Giant was played, it was dealt with quite easily, and there's still 6 power on board with, you know, potential 8 damage next turn because of the Hunter hero power is always there. And BloodTrail wants to do something, but this
has to just play out the
like a lot, does it?
Yeah. Could discover some cool stuff of a Magic Trick, an Ice Barrier, maybe Images, Ray of Frost, so there's a lot of good stuff, but if you miss this turn, then you take a lot of damage. So I do like just playing out the Ziliax and then saying, okay, maybe next turn I try for something a bit crazier.
Blitzchung's got some options now, but I think overall... oh, okay. Interesting. Well, that worked out very well, don't get me wrong.
The Leok, yeah.
But I was thinking, because it could have not worked out that well, I think trading the 4/4 and then just playing Stranglethorn Tiger, the next turn you can Animal Companion and Dire Frenzy, and you have a pretty much guaranteed turn for Dire Frenzy. And you never know, you might get huff on a Dire Frenzy and then you're happy anyway. Yeah. Maybe that was good enough, but Blitzchung chose a little bit of a different line and got rewarded for it, to be completely honest. That Leok was perfect.
Yeah, it was a bit riskier, but the payoff was pretty good. He's also in a good spot too, so if he whiffs, he still ends up trading the 4/4, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
He's weaving in the hero powers as well, just in case Mage happens to make a sort of wide board like we were talking about with Mirror Images. Obviously, there's no Unleash the Hounds in hand, and BlitzCheck didn't have some of those refill cards that we were talking about, tracking and Master's Call.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Go again?
He can go again, yeah.
Took out the Ice Call on the Leon, trying to get it weaker so the missiles potentially...
Also bear in mind that these spells do not, like, the spell usage doesn't get used up when you play a Mana Cyclone. So the second one has all the spells you played beforehand and any spells you play afterwards. So this is even bigger. Yeah.
The Ray of Frost was a great pickup. He's going to have to freeze both because he's a little low on health. He has seen a kill command, but still, I mean, with the hero power there and your Ziliax already being used, you don't want to be in a position where you can just get pinged down from the hero power for 4 turns or something.
And this is the position you often get into in this
a
matchup
mage.
where, okay, I've just about secured myself. Oh wait, in 3 turns I can be pinged down to death anyway.
That's assuming there's like nothing from hand too, right? No
exactly,
kill command, no unleash, no. Yeah.
Because if you look now, a lot of the, again, just outside of Giant Conjurer's craziness, the board often looks like this when you stabilize as mage because you have to do cyclone things, chain a lot of spells, etc., freezes, and that means that unleash gets dangerous if you've not got a big taunt up.
So blitzchung opting to play the tiger here instead of hero powering,
like
get something big on the board. BloodTrail does have some random cards in hand from the mana cyclones, but he's only running 1 Frost Nova in his deck, so getting the tiger down is, I think, a lot better than just weaving in a hero power this turn.
I agree, and again, it's just a solid Dire Frenzy target as well.
Yeah. So BloodTrail has the option of playing a 3-mana Rabble Bouncer and Sea Giant, but that doesn't look too pretty on the board. There's a lot of large beasts facing him down here. There's not a whole lot else he can do, right? Like he can polymorph a 5/4.
Nothing's cheap enough to get Luna cooking, right? That's the problem.
I think you do have to make a play like this. Just say, all right, I can't just play scared. I need to develop something, clean up the board a bit, hope you can't get through this, and the next turn I'll try to make my big push of Conjurer's Calling and try to win the turn after that.
So I think with Dire Frenzy, blitzchung just puts BloodTrail to 1 and says, well, you've already used Ziliak's friend. Where's the heals?
Yeah, blitzchung is very close to lethal here. If he plays either the Frenzy or the Rhino, they each push 3 damage, depending on how they get traded into it. So the Rhino, you can trade 3 damage plus the Spring Paw in, which is a bit overkill, but then you push 8 plus the hero power is 10, setting your opponent down to 1. Alternatively, you could Dire Frenzy the Spring Paw and accomplish the same thing. And then you have the Tundra Rhino in hand, and you can play anything.
I think I like the Dire Frenzy, because the Dire Frenzy puts more Spring Paws in your deck. I think there's 1 4/4 left in the deck for him, because he's drawn an extra 1. Or maybe there's 2 actually, but anyway. You buff it up, trade, and then that means that next turn you can Rhino, maybe draw a Spring Paw or draw whatever, and then charge those and probably fit hero power in as well. So I think I like the Dire Frenzy personally. Oh, is he going to Dire Frenzy the Tiger? I mean, okay. He's 1 turn away from drawing 1 with the Rhino, though.
I mean, BloodTrail's going to be on 1 health anyway.
That's
so
true, yeah. I mean, we're really going in like a bit, nitpicky here in terms of which way round you do it. Yeah. But the core point is either way, blitzchung puts BloodTrail to 1, and BloodTrail has to find some miraculous way to heal, and I don't think that way exists.
No, Omega Medic isn't active until turn 10.
And there's the self-ping, and blitzchung, and honestly, it's as easy as that. Like, it's crazy. The deck does so well. And BloodTrail had Mana Cyclone, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Mountain Giant as keeps. Yep. So he kept 3 of his opening cards, so you've got to say that's at least decent. If you keep it 3 cards, you didn't have to full mulligan. And it still didn't even look close. And there was not even particularly, say, the hard counter of Giant on curve into just Deadly Shot go. There was still trade, kill command, and so on, so it did require some damage. But blitzchung just got it done anyway, and this could be edging towards a 4-0 score for blitzchung this weekend. So is he going to do it? We'll find out after the break.
Well met, friend. Ooh. Let's get this over with.
I win!
Oh, what What an amazing game! Oh, well played!
Here's to the winner.
One night, I was called on to scry. But what is this symbol I spy? It's my own crystal ball. Yes, I'll answer the call. And the others will come by and by. That's right. We be calling a team in. The masters of plotting and scheming. By this candle a-glowing, I surely be knowing whose gold will be once more a-gleaming.
We're back here at the Asia Pacific Grandmasters, and we just had blitzchung take a very straightforward win with his Hunter over BloodTrail's Cyclone Mage. So we're going to be going into Game 2 shortly, but before we do, we can check out the altered list as blitzchung, as all the players do, have an option to change to their tertiary or secondary deck after game number 1. And like we check, he's moved over to his secondary deck, and that's quite interesting to me.
Yeah, so yesterday in blitzchung versus Patra, we saw blitzchung switch to his tertiary deck in game 2. So it's interesting that against the same class, Cyclone archetype Cyclone Mage, he's opting to switch to his secondary deck. Now in his secondary deck, he's cut a Scale Hide, a Marked Shot, a Stranglethorn Tiger, and an Unleash the Beast to add in a Headhunter's Hatchet, a Rat Trap, a Snipe, and a Deadly Shot. Now the Hatchet and the Snipe can help deal with an Apprentice or Cyclone or basically any 2-health minion. And the Rat Trap, obviously Mage does a lot of combo-y things, so if you throw in an extra 6/6 in there, that can help quite a bit. And an extra Deadly Shot just to deal with another Giant on curve that pops up.
Yeah, and I think as well, just a small note, is although these Cyclone Mages, we are calling them Cyclone Mage, if we made up a new name for every slight couple of cards different, we'd be here all week, which some of us are, so actually that makes sense. But I think for me is, Patra's list had less anti-aggro tech. It had Antinidus and like the Snap Freezes, which aren't really anti-aggro, I would say. It's more to deal with the big guys. Whereas BloodTrail is running a Rabble Bouncer and the Vex Crow as well, which Patra did not have in the main list. So my thoughts are that the tertiary list from blitzchung had more straight up just aggro, and that might not be enough to just get through a Rabble Bouncer, right? And maybe the Vex Crow going wide with extra taunts. So I think these choices are just blitzchung just flexing a little bit to the second deck, mainly to take down the things he thinks BloodTrail can actually do to him. So instead of having some more aggressive cards like Baited Arrow, he actually has an additional Deadly Shot, which is much better versus a Rabble Bouncer, for example, on curve.
I agree quite a bit, and this is definitely showcasing blitzchung's strength and not just blindly picking, oh, I'm picking this against Mage, I'm picking this against...
Right.
He's actively looking at the list, looking at the cards, and he's figuring out, okay, actually against this, I think I'm going to want my secondary list instead because of the points you just outlined. Yep. And we see a Deadly Shot in his opening hand. He's considering being on the play. It's easier to play a Mountain Giant for the Cyclone perspective on the coin, so blitzchung's perhaps considering, do I keep this Deadly Shot in case the Mage just plays out a Giant? And it looks like yeah. I think you do need to get on the board before having that Deadly Shot, because if you have that Deadly Shot and then, nothing else to play for a few turns, great that you have an answer, but then you're not developing anything.
The Rat Trap, though. I love this card.
It's
so sick.
Yeah.
Anytime I've been playing Hunter lists, and you know when you play a few games on Legend, you're like, I think I need to change something. Almost every time I go to his, I'm just gonna put a Rat Trap in, because right now, like, especially when Rogue was knocking around more, like there are so many decks that do just churn out big combo turns, and multiple cards means you get a 6/6, and by the time you get it, it's unlikely that they have the stuff to deal with it that turn. You get a 6/6 with charge almost, and it's absurd. And especially against Cyclone Mage, a deck that you know, one of its core abilities is being able to chain a lot of spells. It's not like BloodTrail can really play around it either, unless just having a giant on board that lives somehow to trade off and then go is the way to play around it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even if
so
it
hard.
doesn't get procced, your opponent has to consider, do I really want to proc this right now?
Right,
Maybe it kind of inhibits their plays a little bit if they so choose to.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can just proc and say, whatever, I'll freeze it if you have that, but it's
tough.
it's definitely a cool card, especially in this matchup.
And this is the point, right? So, you know, fair enough, there are double mirror images, so BloodTrail can go off next turn if he really wants with the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Okay, now there's one. The Sorcerer's Apprentice with the cheap spells and then into the Mana Cyclone, even without Evocation. But already, blitzchung's going to start building a board that can deal with the mirror images preemptively anyway, so this Rat Trap is still going to cause trouble. And I don't think BloodTrail can realistically, even if he knows 100% it's Rat Trap, what's he going to do? Just not play?
Yeah, that's
Like,
the
you
thing.
can't just not play multiple cards in this deck because it's what the deck's built to do.
You have to do something. I like BloodTrail using the mirror images here just to save some health. There's a Huffer on board, obviously, and that's 4 damage, but leaving the Huffer alive, not that BloodTrail could deal with it, means that Dire Frenzy is a threat, and if you don't play mirror images, you could take 7 damage, and that starts that up a lot.
I would love as well the Snipe this turn, because if you look at this list, Banana Buffoon and Swampert, which you could argue is like a punish for Snipe, but it still spends mana from your opponent, right?
Yeah.
But it means that we can see there can't be a Sorcerer's Apprentice turn now, because with 2 secrets down, it's so much more likely that one is Snipe, which means that you, because there's only a Rat Trap, a Snipe,
That's it.
And that's it, yeah.
Yeah. So now BloodTrail should know for sure, alright, that's a Snipe, that's a Rat Trap. Unless it was, he should be tracking cards and he might have deck tracker or something up, but those 2 cards were from the natural deck. The explosive was created by the Shimmerfly, I believe.
Yeah. And that's why I said more likely. Obviously, it's 100% now because I just didn't mention explosive trap was gained from the minion and not in deck. There is no explosive trap. Explosive traps in his deck. There we go.
I like this coin's legs from BloodTrail. Doesn't probably the snake trap. Gets the Snipe out of the way. He recognizes that he's going to need some. Like a big, he's going to need a big Cyclone Apprentice turn, which means that he should get the Snipe out of the way. The Ziliax also cleans up the Huffer, which is nice.
Funnily enough, though, just very quickly, it's a strong turn from blitzchung, providing that, you know, another threat to deal with. But BloodTrail using a 1 mirror image and then the coin, well, this big Cyclone turn's not so big anymore, is it? That's 2 spells down.
You could chain a few magic tricks.
I mean, that's the plan. I mean, seriously, that's actually what you want to do, right?
Yeah. BloodTrail opting to Arcane Intellect instead on his turn, thinking that it's... If he goes in the Cyclone turn now, first of all, it's very, very unlikely he finds something that clears the Tundra Rhino, and then it will also proc the Rat Trap, and then suddenly you're facing 8 damage. You don't actually have that much developed. So he's trying to find some more resources, perhaps a Giant Conj, which he can't quite play yet, but trying to find something else.
Now it's going to be really funny. This magic trick has to be insane.
Has to be pretty good.
Those are not insane, which is why he went straight for Intellect. Oh, he's going to do it. But the problem is now, like, I don't think blitzchung cares.
Well,
outside of a Nova,
you can get a Sea Giant on the board here. If he finds an Elemental Vacation here, he can play the other Cyclone as well. Snap Freeze isn't bad. Frostbolt isn't bad either. You actually don't have a freeze right now, so the Snap Freeze doesn't kill anything. So the Frostbolt might actually be better. The thing is, I think BloodTrail wants to develop more this turn, something like a Sea Giant, because a 3-2 and a 2-2 isn't that good at fighting for board, right? You need something a bit more substantial.
It's very difficult though, because if you play Sea Giant, you're just dead.
Right, but I mean, if you don't play Sea Giant, what are you doing, right? You're frostbolting something, but...
And this is the power, right? So the Hyena was played. If the Hyena gets dealt with, well, it's less likely the Rat gets dealt with. The Rat is effectively a Hyena that has been buffed by a few dead minions, right? You know, size-wise, right?
Yeah.
So it was funny just the way that interacted with, like, Hyena's down. If you do stuff to get rid of the Hyena, the rat probably
oh my goodness, this is going to be an insane amount of damage. So Master's Call to pick up the Timberwolf means that these Spring Paws in hand can deal with mirror images.
And they've all got charge anyway, so blitzchung can do whatever he wants in terms of trades.
He's going to clean up the Sorcerer's Apprentice because that is a threat. Yep, that goes upstairs, that goes upstairs, that goes upstairs, and now blitzchung decides that he might look off the cycle at this point. He's got 2 kill commands in hand, that's just lethal. If nothing is done to kind of
He needs to heal, freeze or clear the... No, he needs to heal, clear the board.
Yeah, because the... Oh my god. Because the Rhino just gives
still
anything else
dead.
charge.
Yeah, and it's still dead.
But it's just
I feel
crazy.
bad for anyone who's playing Mage against blitzchung right now because it's savage.
And this is just consistent. Like this happens every game. Maybe not this exact, 7-turn, game, but this sort of same thing happens. The hunter develops something, the mid-range hunter develops something early, hits face a couple times, generates more threat, gathers some resources, and then just deals with whatever the mage puts down.
Like honestly, this is like blitzchung, the only player who's brought Beast and mid-range variant of hunter, and this is why I even said yesterday that I don't like mech hunter doesn't do as well as this, in my opinion, at all. And this is just going to be game, and we blinked and blitzchung played yesterday, first today. So back-to-back matches for him, and he 2-0'd them both, and he can just relax and enjoy himself for at least the rest of today while he starts prep for next week, no doubt, but still incredible from blitzchung. Really impressive. Not only very solid play, there's a few... I think the only differences I had in opinion of his plays were just when it doesn't matter. Like, oh, I would have done this, but you do this, you win regardless.
Yeah, both of them set your opponent's health to 1 or 0.
Yeah, just didn't really matter. And blitzchung not only is playing extremely solid, but this pick was perfect for this week, and specifically this region. I believe we're going to be speaking to blitzchung again. It feels like only a minute ago that we were interviewing him anyway, but. Yeah, absolutely incredible pick as far as I'm concerned, and blitzchung was greatly rewarded for it. Do you think we're going to see anything that is as successful as this going forward?
Like in the coming weeks or later today or tomorrow?
It's hard to read, right, in terms of what you bring versus your opponents. You've got to prep for 2 opponents every week. But this, I think, blitzchung just hit the nail on the head perfectly.
I mean, I think the way some players are prepping and kind of trying to make reads is... It can kind of vary how successful it goes, but I think blitzchung hit this nail on the head, dead center. This was just exactly what you needed to bring against Mage. Some other players we saw ended up bringing Mech Hunter as well, which does do well against Mage, but I don't think it matches quite what Mid-Range Hunter had, and maybe some people just overlook this deck. Perhaps they just... the thing is, submitting every week, it's hard to play 50 different decks and archetypes and just say, all right, this is the exact one I need to bring. blitzchung found the one,
Yeah, and on the other side there, BloodTrail takes a loss, and that's going to be, I believe, 0-3 for him now, which is going to rough start to the league, 100% there. He does have another match to play this week, though he's going to be playing tomorrow, so he has a chance to make that a little bit better as a 1-3 score potentially. But again, I think if you go in 0-4, things get a little bit rough as the time goes on. 2 matches a week for 7 weeks of play within the league, and then there's the playoffs, which is the last week. So by then it's already too late. You either made the cut or you didn't. But BloodTrail, like I said, still got the plan. He's going to be facing Shaxi on his Warrior tomorrow, so that's the one he's really going to have to prep for and do well with. And his build, I would say, is okay versus Warrior. He's running the Astromancer and even the Rabble Bouncer being able to be saved for the turn where you can potentially Rabble Bouncer into the Conjurer's Calling, or, as we've seen so many Warriors be playing right now, 3-drop into 4-drop into 5-drop. I just hit my pen. Pressure, which means that maybe the Rabble Bouncer actually comes down early and just saves 5, 6, 7, 8 damage maybe to actually store it up. I believe we are getting blitzchung just ready. We're just making sure the call is okay so you guys can hear it clearly. But yeah, huge deal here, because it does mean blitzchung overall, his score is going to be 3-1 so far. He only lost to Shaxi on the sort of slower rogue Shaxi played last week, which means that he's been doing well so far. He's just getting the wins one after another, and I expect blitzchung to continue if this week's prep was anything to go by.
Yeah, definitely.
Pretty impressive overall. We've got plenty more matches coming up today, though. Just a quick reminder, we've got 4 more today. There's going to be 6 on Sunday, but also the European region follows straight on from us after we're done today, and then Americas follows on after that. So tons of Hearthstone to watch, so depending on when you choose to sleep, you can catch action from all 3 regions, and all the VODs are going to be up on the site anyway. But I believe blitzchung is ready. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Awesome. So we spoke to you what feels like 2 minutes ago as you won the last match of yesterday. So congratulations once again. Were you just as confident going in, against another mage? Because again, you made it look very, very easy.
Yeah, I think it was a bit easier than I was expecting, because I think I I actually didn't tech well enough in my secondary and Titaria deck. I think I could have done better.
Okay.
And I think they did not really expect Hunter, so they didn't tech it quite well. So it looks easy for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, both your opponents ended up sticking to their primary deck throughout this both series anyway. So there was no second or third deck that was deemed good enough. And what out of interest, you changed to your secondary deck against BloodTrail, but you changed to your tertiary deck versus Patra yesterday. Can you just explain the thought process there? Because I feel like you're one of the few players who doesn't just have clear, this is my anti-mage deck, this is my anti-warrior deck. It seems a little bit more fluid for you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you actually noticed that.
I try, I do my best.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, because yesterday, Petra, her Tatari deck, I remember that she removed like 2 mountain giants.
Yes.
And I thought she would just switch to that deck, and because I mean my secondary deck, I have 2 deadly shot in my secondary deck, but I only have 1 in my Tatari. So against Petra, if I switch to secondary deck, my deadly shot might be useless because she might switch to his Tatari deck.
Right.
But today, like BloodTrail, all 3 of his deck, there's 2 mountain giants. So I decided to just go with the version with 2 deadly shot.
Okay, awesome. Like I said, I actually really like the more flexible choices within the way you've built the Hunter. And just finally, you've gone 3-1 in the first 2 weeks of Grandmasters, so you must be pretty happy with that. Are you feeling confident going forward? Because I feel like it's almost a new deck building challenge every week so far with the nerfs and then some buffs coming as well. Are you feeling confident you're going to keep this good score streak up?
Yeah, I'm feeling confident. I'm just gonna keep playing decks that I'm comfortable with, and then trying to play my best.
Okay, and then just before we let you go, is there any shout-outs you want to give? I didn't ask you yesterday because it's quite rude of me, but are any shout-outs you want to give to any practice partners, anyone that's helped you along?
Wow, there are actually so many. Like all the, I actually have a lot of practice partner, in the Hong Kong community, yeah, there are just too many of them.
You can shout out the whole Hong Kong community. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna thanks to Last Hope, Funk, and Kin. Yeah, 3 of them, and Asura from Taiwan, who gave me lots of advice on the Marine Chanter list.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, congratulations once more, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you.
Okay, awesome. I really like the way blitzchung just has done his list, and again, just knowing, did get it a little bit wrong because Patrick didn't end up switching, of course, but just having that mindset of, okay, if they switch to this is pointless, or switch to a slightly different list that may be weaker, but also overall do a better job. So great play from blitzchung once again. That's only match number 1. We've got plenty more coming up, so don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with more Hearthstone Grandmasters.